Welcome to Sex, Race, and Money with me, Jenny Lewis. Are you someone who wants to change patterns of unhealthy behavior? Do you want to learn the personal truth of who you really are and be more of that person every day? Do you want to have more connection and intimacy with your friends and loved ones? Are you ready to talk honestly and freely about what life is really like? Then this is the show for you, because it's dedicated to helping us cut through the bullshit and look at and love what is truly ourselves, our deeply complex, non-conforming, beautifully human selves. We'll hear from everyday people and top experts, and I look forward to sharing this journey with you. I'm a lawyer turned life coach helping real women heal around the topics of sex, race, and money. To stay connected to the show and never miss an episode, please subscribe and join our online community at Sex, Race, and Money with me, Jenny Lewis, or at the website, jennylewiscoaching.com. All right, I am here with Michael Holt today. I'm really happy to have him here. He is one of my old coaches, maybe my coach again in the future, who knows. I love him dearly. He's taught me a whole lot about myself, my body, my connection to the greatness within my being, my health, and I think more than anyone else, like connection to the world in a way that nourishes my soul and also allows me to flow out in a deeper and truer way. So I'm really happy to have him here today.
I'm really happy to be here, and I'm really happy to hear you say that.
Yeah. And he's going to share with us his story. He's going to share with us his offering. He's going to tell us a lot about himself, and we're going to and get to bathe in the beauty of the transmission of Michael Holt. So, Michael Holt. Tell me a little bit about your offering, and then I'd like to move into just a little bit, and then we'll move into your story and how you got to a place of having that offering.
Sure. Yeah. So I work as a holistic health practitioner, as you know, which means I implement natural means to optimize the performance of the body-mind.
Yeah.
You know, there are rules to being a human on planet Earth. Modern living stands in opposition to those rules, which is more and more the case, which is why we see the prevalence of disease, disorder, depression. And when we understand how we're meant to live and we follow the rules of Mother Earth, you know, we align with nature in our lifestyle, a lot of problems dissolve. Primary areas of focus in my work with my clientele are the state of the mind through the practice of mindfulness and meditation, the depth of the breath, the quality of your sleep, quality of your nutrition and your hydration, and a sound movement diet. And when you develop a daily life that checks all those boxes, you start to cultivate vitality. You know, lust for life starts to emerge, and then you have something to give to the people in your life. You're full. You're full. So the practice is really about taking care of yourself.
Yeah. Vitality is something I think, like when I roll back to at the time of my life when I was working in New York, like as an attorney, like having a place of knowing that vitality in the way that you describe as a possibility it seemed far away and impossible, honestly. You know, it just seems so important to have enough money and have shelter and do things well and right.
Sure.
That vitality just seemed like a fantasy.
Yeah, and you have to have a look at what does enough money mean, and what does wealth mean. Does wealth mean money? Does wealth mean health? Or does wealth mean some combination of both? I know a lot of very rich people who aren't wealthy because they're not happy. I know a lot of people who are not rich, but they're very happy. So I call them wealthy. So we have to have a good hard look at what makes you happy. And are you going after that? Or does your daily life take you further and further from what that is? And that's a scary inquiry. And it's an inquiry that many people don't take. Because it's confronting.
It is confronting because, you know, when I think about it for myself, it means potentially giving up a lot of external approval.
Absolutely.
You know, and really trusting in it's the word that comes to mind for me is nourishment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, say for instance, there's a giant buffet, and I could eat all of it, but none of it is actually the food that I want.
Yeah.
And so, trusting that just going for the food that I want will be like so much that I won't want the buffet anymore.
Sure.
And that's a very tricky shift of the mind, honestly, for me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. There's that cliche, something like we work jobs we don't like to buy things we don't need to impress people we don't know. And you can live a whole life like that, you know, judging yourself upon the external accumulation of things and always reaching for the next thing and the next thing. And that'll be the thing that I can finally just exhale and be at peace. But that future moment that never comes, it's an illusion. What we're looking for is only available right here, right now. And so the practice, you notice the 6 criteria, the 6 rules that I outlined. Number 1 was the practice of training the mind. Training the mind to settle in to this, to recognize that this is it. You know, what you're looking for, what you're really looking for is available now. So sit still, you know, take a deep breath. And that's the practice. It's constantly guiding the mind back to that. Now, don't get it twisted. As you know, as I know, as anyone who diligently endeavors to practice the training of the mind knows, it's not unicorns and rainbows. It's not kumbaya, my lord, you know?
Right.
It can be really challenging because we live in a society where our primary means of emotional regulation is distraction. And the practice of sitting still is letting go of all distractions and sitting with what is. And sometimes what is not pleasant. But we realize that we can ride that out. You know, we can sit with something that's not pleasant and it doesn't kill us. We stay in it. We don't need to eat ice cream or spend money or go shopping to save us from what we're feeling. We choose just to feel. And the more we choose that, the more we metabolize the gunk that's collected in our body through the traumas that we've collected, the more free we become, the more beautiful the present moment becomes. But that's a lifelong practice.
That is a lifelong practice. I have experiences of that, which I can share, but I know that you might too.
Sure.
Yeah. Would you share with us?
Yeah, so I have a meditation retreat practice for the past 8 or 9 years. I try to go on 3 or 4 meditation retreats a year.
Yeah.
And over the years, they've varied in length. From the first time I ever went was 3 days, which at the time was very challenging. And then as my practice deepened, I went for as long as 4 weeks. And it always irked me a little bit if I would tell people in my life, like my clients, for example, I'm going to be out of town for 2 weeks. I'm going on a meditation retreat. And you get this, lucky you. Must be nice. Wish I had that kind of time, which is, you know, that can be true. I've arranged my life so that I do have time for that because it's important to me. Not everyone does. But there's this idea that a meditation retreat is like a spa day, just total relaxation. But that's not been my experience at all. There has been beautiful moments on retreat, and my retreat practice has made my life, my daily life, more beautiful because I have a greater access to that grounded of the present moment. But basically, I don't even like the word retreat. I think it should be called a meditation advance because you're literally there on the front line of your shit. You know, you're facing your shit.
Yeah.
And the only way out, I think a teacher, Chogyam Trungpa, said, the only way out is through. So if you want to free yourself from all that, from the emotions, from the stuff that you may not even be aware of it, but at a level beneath your conscious mind, it's dictating your course of action in the world. So to feel that stuff is to free yourself of it, but it has to be felt. You can't skip that step. So I've had many moments on the cushion where I was in pain, emotional pain. That said, it's totally worth doing, and I would recommend it to anyone. You know, I mentioned I went on a 4-week meditation retreat, and some people were like, that's insane.
Mm-hmm.
You know, are you okay? Why would you do that?
Mm-hmm.
But I think you have to look at it like this. Maybe we get 100 years on planet Earth if we're lucky. If you take good care of yourself, you get a hundo. To take 1 month to just sit and just try to get some kind of semblance of order on what is happening, what is this mind, what is this life, what is happening. To take 1 month for that inquisition out of 100 years, I think it's insane not to do that. Especially considering that 4 weeks could change the course of the rest of your life.
That's the part that I heard.
Yeah.
Like, why go on just spinning and spinning for 100 years? Like, the true reverence to the time that you have here, if time is so precious, is to spend it well.
Sure.
And the only way that I've found to truly spend it well is to have the time to know what well is, you know, and that is a constant a research project for me.
Totally.
You know?
Totally, and there's nothing wrong. You know, I'm not a monk. I don't want to be a monastic. I want to be in the world. I want to be successful. I want to earn money. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there's, you know, you can go after the external success. Also have the internal practice so that you can, you know, see the external for the game that it is. So the highs aren't so high and the lows aren't so low because you're rooted inside of yourself. You can play the game and go after it, you know, sign the big deal and all that stuff and make some money and have fun, but it's not so serious. It's not life or death. It's not the way you measure your worth.
Yeah, I see that. I definitely see that. And I think it's important to note is like everyone's experience here is different. And it may look like more or less money, but it's the tuning into the thing.
Sure.
You know, because I had someone tell me once, like, because it's something that I think about myself is like, I have a lot of things and there's a part of me that thinks, like, is it resonant really to have a lot of material things in the way that I do? But I think there's a truth to my being that is about abundance and beauty and sharing that. And so it would, you know, I keep going into places where I'm like, oh, should it be smaller or should it be less? You know, because I've had that, you know, I've lost things, I've lost everything a few times and come back, you know. But it's like, I know that I can live in that space, but there is something that I want to put in here about finding your resonance.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Because that, like in the expression of abundance and beauty for me, I can unlock that in others.
Absolutely.
You know?
And that gives you the opportunity to be generous.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And how do you know a theme that I come to with regard to martial art? I'm a martial artist and a martial art instructor.
Yeah.
And it's very important. It's part of my path. And one of the things I like to put out there for contemplation is, can you actually claim to be a peaceful person if you don't have the capacity to fuck somebody up? Excuse my French.
That's true. Well, tell me more about that.
So it's like, okay, if you don't have the capacity, then there's no real choice to be peaceful. There's no choice to not use it because you couldn't if you wanted to. But I think it's the same with accumulating external wealth.
Yeah.
Can you claim to be, you know, of pure heart and be generous if you don't have the money? If you have the money, now the opportunity is, okay, what am I really about?
Yeah.
You know, so it's a good test of your true character.
It's true.
Money is going to show you who you really are, just the way martial ferocity could show you who you really are. So make the money and find out.
You know what? It's true. It's actually harder for me to have the money and tune into how to spend it well than to not have the money.
Yeah.
Because that's a place I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
So it's and it's an interesting game, because just like the example I gave about the buffet, spending money is exactly the same way.
Sure.
It's like there are many things that I could spend it on, but it's not at all satisfying.
Right.
But it takes an extreme amount of discipline, especially with all of the beliefs that I have about having beautiful things, you know, to find the things that are exactly resonant with what I want.
Yeah.
And to know how to share it. Like this podcast is an example of that, you know.
Yeah.
It's that is the edgier game for me actually right now.
Yeah, it's a beautiful practice and a difficult one.
Yeah, it is. It is. And then to continue to, create an abundance too is where my edge is now. And so there's a lot in it for me. And this is actually where I get to stretch and find my soul.
Right on.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's that one. I like it a lot. I think we talked about money in regard to like finding resonance, but there's something to what you said, and I wanted to talk about this today with you, Savage and Saint.
Yeah.
There's something to what you just said that's important, is knowing money, like not having it and having it, but there's also that in many other things, in other relationships. Like I really like what you said, because about having to fuck somebody up first. It's important to have had that experience and know yourself in that place in order to really like know who you are.
Yeah.
Like it'd be one thing for me to say I'm a good person and I would never, like, I don't know, cheat on my boyfriend or hit on someone else's, but I know that I do. And I have, and like, because I have, it's like, I know that part of me very well. And it doesn't run me in the way that you talked about at the beginning of this. Like it doesn't, the undercurrent of it doesn't run me, because I'm willing to acknowledge that is part of my,
sure,
that is a woman I am.
Yeah, it's a part of the shadow that you've faced.
Yeah.
And integrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big part of the work.
Yeah.
One of the things that really irks me about spiritual work or meditation is like this like helpless clinging to positivity, and the connotation that if you have undertaken an internal path, that you should be chipper all the time.
Right.
And that's just so not my experience, and so to me it just feels gross and untrue. A big part of the work is facing the shadows of yourself.
Yeah.
And liberating them in healthy, conscious ways, finding containers to express that part of yourself in a way that's not harming. And, I teach men's work, and like you mentioned, the Savage and the Saint, that's kind of the philosophy that I've developed about that, because we're in a time in the modern era where men don't really have the opportunity to express a very natural, primal part of themselves. It's in our blood. It's in our bone marrow.
Deeply.
There's nothing wrong with it. But we sit at a desk all day and it's just never liberated. Or you're told that you shouldn't liberate it. And so then it just festers inside of you, and then you freak out at somebody in traffic or slap your son or get in a bar fight. So when you create containers to let that part of you out, life becomes more peaceful. That's the paradox of martial art for me personally, and for any true martial artist I've ever met. The greater your skill set becomes, the more capacity you have to skillfully hurt somebody, the less likely you are to ever take it there, or even it doesn't even cross your mind anymore, because you've just let that part of you out. And it's a humbling process to cultivate any skill in martial art, because you take your bumps along the road, So by the time you have any skill, you've been humbled. If you trained at a good gym and you have good mentors, you've been humbled. And that ferocity that got you in the door, for me personally, there's a whole spiritual side to the martial art. That's not why I started training. I started training because I was pissed, because I was insecure, because I was sad, and because I was afraid. I didn't know that at the time, but that's why that's why I started training. But through the movements, through the practice, I was able to just move all that stuff through me. And then you arrive at this place where, okay, I don't have anything to prove to anybody. I don't want to hurt anybody. I just want to be peaceful. And then peace becomes a choice,
right?
Not a compulsion.
Tell me about a time when you, like an example of something that you moved through during that time, so we can have a sense for like where you came from and how you got.
Yeah, so I think if you meet any health practitioner, healer, somebody who's really dedicated and committed to learning and to helping others, anyone who's worth their salt in that line of work, they were once very wounded. You know, and that's the case for me too. Every inquiry that I've taken, everything I've wanted to learn so that I can now I have this toolbox that I can share with the people who I work with, was originally for me to learn how to help myself.
Yeah, same
you know?
Yeah.
So I was, years ago, I was depressed. It was probably 10, 15 years ago. I didn't have any love for myself, so I didn't really care for myself. I mean, as far as what I put inside my body. I was using alcohol to regulate my emotions, getting in fights in the street. Just, there was this, I was not comfortable with myself. I didn't love myself. And so because I didn't, my behaviors in the world reflected that. So you can't really have love for other people if you don't first have it for yourself. Once you mend that primary relationship with yourself, you get right with the man in the glass or the woman in the glass, you really love, you love that person, you want to care for them. That naturally is going to ripple out into the world. So then it becomes very natural to be in a line of work, let's say, where you're in a position of service. And so for me, it was a long road to get there.
Right.
Because I was hurting. I have a teacher who talks about if you distribute the people who are called to the deep practice of meditation, they're distributed along a bell curve. At one end, you have people who are just struggling. They just can't seem to get in the game of life. They're addicts, or they're depressed, or they're suicidal. They're jacked up. And then at the other end, you have people who they have it all. From the outside looking in, they just killed it. They've done everything they wanted to do in life, but still they're left with this emptiness because they see so clearly that, wow, I've done everything I wanted to do, and none of it is fulfilling. Now in the middle, you have people who life is not so good, it's not so bad. There's ups and downs, but okay. So there's no real impetus to look deeply into into things,
Yeah.
So for me, I was at this end of the spectrum. I was just hurting. I couldn't.
The first one.
Yeah, I couldn't get right. I was struggling. Years ago, I grew up in Philly, and I was always getting in trouble with the law, and I've come a long way. I mean, if you would have told that young man that I am where I am now, in the line of work that I'm in now, there would have been no real like what? What? And I didn't set out to do it. It's just part of the journey. So yeah, there was a time in my life where I was really hurting, and I can see from where I'm at now, and my life is not perfect now. I don't want it to sound like that. I still have struggles and problems, and I have my own practice. I always will.
Yeah.
But I have made friends with myself. Now I can see clearly that those miles that I walked of self-loathing, of suicidal thoughts, of depression, of staying up late at night eating mac and cheese just to fucking numb the pain. I had to do that. I had to have that life experience. I have to know what that is like. I have to walk those miles myself, because now I can understand somebody if they come to me in that state. Or I can see somebody very clearly and right away and know, okay, I know how you're living because I live that way. Here's what I did. It worked for me. Let me show you, and I want to help you. And then, teach one, reach one, or whatever that thing is. And then I'm going to show you what I learned, and you'd go show someone what you learned, and we'll all heal together. But the primary responsibility is to heal yourself, because that starts a chain of events. But we all have to take responsibility for ourselves. And so that's what the healing path was for me. Just taking responsibility for my health, my happiness,
There's an important thing that you noticed that you're talking to that could be really helpful there is there something in, I think there's a thing that's happening in society now, and I don't know, it comes up every once in a while in these conversations where there's this hate for policemen, or policemen hating other, or what is there something in your experience that you can, that has helped you have sight on what that could be about?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question.
I don't know the answer. It just came to me.
So when I was a younger man, late teens, early 20s, I hated cops. I hated cops. I had a t-shirt that said, "Fuck the police." And I was also drawn toward like militant atheism because I was a Catholic schoolboy. And then as I started to grow up and did some more reading and expanded my horizons, I was just like, wait a minute. I was lied to. Those people lied to me. And so that started my own kind of spiritual inquiry. And it started with, fuck God. God is dead. And then I was drawn toward anarchism. You know, there's just so much. When I look back, I can see now that it was anger in myself. I just needed something to stick to, some force in the world, government, police, religion. And so I would even go and kind of hang around people who had the similar ideology. But then I started to realize, man, these people are all just pissed and sad. And they're all just looking for something to be pissed and sad at. And so that's in my spirit. It's part of me, you know, that revolutionary, rebellious thing. And I don't ever want to give that up. Right. But my path has shown me that really the highest call of the revolutionary, the true rebellion, is the internal path. Is to take impeccable care of yourself, to wake up to what's really happening, to sit still in a society that's constantly trying to pull your attention to the next thing, or sell you a pill, or give you junk food, or whatever. The real revolutionary act is to be healthy and to be happy. And that kind of really started to land in me. You know, you can go to some rally and be angry about the powers that be, but the real revolution starts here, well, right here. And what if everybody took that responsibility upon themselves? Imagine the shift. But you cannot force anyone to do anything. You have to start with yourself. And you might, if you really, you know, take up the path diligently, you might inspire some people. You know, you might push some people in the right direction. So that's the real revolution. But yeah, I would say that people who have that mentality that I once had, fuck the cops, fuck City Hall, you know, I think it stems from an internal thing. There's pain and sadness there, probably as a result of the conditions of your life. And so you just look at those things with animosity because you haven't really had a look at what's happening inside.
Or known that it was even a thing.
Yeah.
I feel like if I roll back into, there've been, I don't think my places of rebellion are as extreme. Like I definitely have that deep primal energy in me, but like that. But it's, you know, there were rallies and things in college, and there's definitely the importance of like questioning God and hating God is an important part of getting to where, you know, getting in and through.
Sure.
But there's something to just knowing that there's another way that I didn't even know was possible.
Yeah.
That's important to share here, and not to like belittle because it's real when you're in it.
Yeah.
You know, but just to say like, I hear you, and you're more powerful than you think, I think is the lesson.
Yeah.
You know, and not from this sharing of energy outward, but just from tapping into what's really here in a way that maybe you and nobody else has yet appreciated, but can happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not to say that we just have to accept injustice in the world. You know, I have a teacher who's very active in the political world. He has a deep practice of meditation, but he always says, anger is not a sustainable fuel source for change. You will burn out. It will burn you. I've heard the quote from the Buddha. I don't know if he really said it. There's so many quotes that say Buddha said, but he said something like, anger is like picking up a hot stone to throw at somebody and expecting not to get burned. So it's not sustainable. You have to get through that. Anger, it can charge you up and move you in the right direction, But at some point you have to put that down and let love be the motivator that you step out in the world to change, because that resource is limitless. You will not burn out with that one.
Yeah. And the lovingness doesn't mean like you hug everybody.
No.
It's actually the one that it's up for me lately. It's the heart. It requires the most power.
Yeah. And you can there's ferocious love.
There is a deep, ferocious love that has caused me to break many of the like conditions or patterns of what I was told I was supposed to be.
Sure.
Like a good person in this way, but when I know that we are all better when I hold integrity in a particular way. Absolutely. Being able to hold that integrity regardless of how upset my family might be or my friends might be. Like that's true courage to me these days.
So like we talked about the savage and the saint, you can see it, if you look at it like the yin-yang symbol, there is savagery buried in the saint. And there's saintliness buried within the savage. So they're always interplaying with one another. Maybe telling someone a hard truth. Yeah. In a compassionate way. It requires this is going to be difficult, but this is for you. Yeah. I'm going to tell you something that no one else is telling you, but we're all thinking, and I'm giving you this as a gift. Yeah. It can be like a cut. There's some savagery there. Yeah. Deeply. Yeah. And being able to receive that too, allows you. Or look at, let's say, saintliness. Like if you want to look at the example of the practice of meditation. In Theravada Buddhism, they have the Brahmaviharas, the 4 boundless abodes, positive mind states, loving kindness, equanimity, sympathetic joy, and compassion. So it's very saintly to practice those things. But what about the savagery of wrangling the mind and saying, we're going to practice compassion right now? And I'm not going to allow one other thought to arise. You see? So they're linked. It's so true. Yeah. Yeah. This last week, I don't know what's moving through me, but I have wanted to do nothing but like listen to music. And I know it's a distraction from being still. No. And I just don't want to be still. No, you can totally. Well, I can listen to music. Music is beautiful. Sure. But I know that I'm using it to distract me. Distract you from what? From sitting and thinking and like moving through whatever is coming. We might have to have a longer conversation about that. We'll have a longer one about that. But there's nothing wrong with just sitting and listening to music. You could even use it as a meditation. Meditation is bringing the totality of your attentional resources to anything that you deem relevant at the moment. So you could just sit. You don't have to sit full lotus like this and think or not think. No, sure. You could meditate on the external sound of the song. What I'm seeing more and more clearly in my practice, and as I sit with teachers who are really steeped in the practice for 40, 50 years, is that formally very black and white. Okay, this is my meditation period, and then I just turn mindfulness off and bop around the planet and just react automatically to things. And then for 30 minutes a day, I'm going to actually have a look at what's going on. It becomes so gray that, for some of these men or women, they don't have to sit formally. Their life, they're so concentrated. They're so dropped in, they're so available that anything they're doing becomes the meditation. Listening to music, watching the mind ruminate over something that you wish wasn't happening, working out, cooking breakfast. If we learn to approach it as such, everything is an opportunity to deepen into the practice. I like that. I take that. Yeah. Yeah. So boil that all down to enjoy your music. Yeah. Yeah. I'll take it. It brings some consciousness to the whole thing. Sure. I think that's the piece that I'm like just rolling back. I think that's the piece that I want to add there. Yeah. And also I think you're right, there's a bit of compassion. I think I've been tired too. Totally. And I don't think I've let it
I don't think I've let myself have that tiredness. And so
if you don't let yourself have it, it's gonna claim you. And you find yourself in the fetal position on the floor one night, you know, because you didn't schedule that.
Yeah, or I just end up find myself like, oh God, like what is
Sure.
I found myself, I think yesterday I was like, God, I'm so lazy. And I haven't used that word in a long time. Like that's like a throwback to like 8 years ago or something.
Yeah.
And I thought, why is that coming up again? You know? And I'm just looking at the old, you know, it's just wanting some attention. My body's just wanting some attention.
So maybe you give yourself permission and just, I ain't getting off the couch for the next 4 hours.
That's kind of what I did.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I had to do. My friends were like, you just need some rest.
Sure. So one of my teachers, Paul Chek, he makes a very clear distinction between working out and working in. I know we've talked about this before.
We have.
Working out it's not just exercise. It's, you know, this is a workout. Putting yourself in front of a group of people, teaching, anything that's calling things out of you, you're giving. We have to make sure that that's counterbalanced with working in.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we run ourselves into a deficit, and then what good are we? So things like just a nice walk or a soothing stretch or a nice meal or just laying down or even watching, you know, Netflix for a couple hours. Just regenerate. But if we don't put those things in our schedule, then we collapse.
Yeah.
How long can you exhale before you have to inhale?
Right.
You're going to pass out, right? Your body's just going to turn you off and then say, okay, dummy, now it's time to breathe in. So we have to make sure that we put inhales in our schedule. If we don't, there's a price to be paid for that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I work with a lot of people who are, you know, very highly functioning. And for them just to sit still for like 10 minutes is like torture because they've trained their mind to constantly be doing. But that's not a peaceful way to live.
No.
There will always be something to be done, especially if you're at the top of the company. You know, it's never going to go away.
It's true.
So you have to train yourself to just rest. Rest is a skill that takes practice. Relaxation is a skill that takes practice. And if you don't practice it, you don't get good at it. It doesn't just happen.
It's true. There's a new calibration that's wanting to happen, like an attention to it for me.
Yeah.
And I think I'm still working at an old habit of like waiting until it's almost too late to rest.
Sure.
So it's so that attention to myself is really important.
Sounds like you're taking a good look at it. Sounds like you're pretty clear about it.
Yeah, it's coming.
Good.
I do get there eventually.
Yeah.
I've had good help, you know. Yeah, I like this. So I think it feels important to talk about, let's move into talking about tribe. We've laid a nice foundation for that offering.
Yeah, so that's a men's group that I've built with 2 colleagues.
Yeah.
It's an international men's community. We're dedicated to the 3 primary pillars of freedom, purpose, and love. Freedom is, you know, like we talked about, the internal freedom.
Yeah.
Which is really, I think, what every man in his deep heart really craves. You just want to be done. That's what we all want. We just go after that in the silliest ways. So it has a lot, the path of freedom has to do with, you know, work that's fulfilling, with the internal practice of meditation, with martial art, with managing your daily life in such a way that you're cultivating energy. Purpose is, you know, purposeful, meaningful work. You know, how do you spend your time? Why were you born? What does your soul crave? What do you want to do? You have a gift. What is it? That is a very difficult area of exploration to figure that out, because you may find that you have to let go of some things and become a little uncomfortable in the short term. You know, a purposeful life is difficult, though very rewarding. And love, you know, how can you deepen in intimacy so that your relationship with your partner is nourishing for both of you, and can serve as a vehicle to deepen your consciousness and wake you up into what is going on.
Right.
You know, so my colleague Justin Pierce, that's his primary kind of expertise is intimacy. He's in a beautiful relationship with his partner London for like 10 years plus. They just have a baby girl. They have the most beautiful relationship. So he's walking, you know, he's walking his talk.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, Dave Burns, he's the business guy. He's a very successful entrepreneur, and he's learned to approach the work, you know, the daily grind as a monastery.
Mm-hmm.
And my contribution, my area of expertise is the self-management, you know, health, but not just, you know, muscles and a clean diet. I'm talking about happiness. I'm talking about vitality. I'm talking about purpose. I'm talking about movement. I'm talking about feeling good inside of your body.
Yeah.
So those are the areas that we focus on, and we have workshops a few times a year. We have opportunities to get together and practice on the beach. There's a group that men can sign up in, and they'll be placed in a group led by one of our captains. We've developed a hierarchy because men love hierarchy. And so you'd be assigned into a group that would meet twice a month. And it's just an opportunity. It's so important. Men's work is re-emerging major way right now. And there's a lot of whack stuff out there. And it's important. It's important for men to get together and be honest about their experience, because a few things happen when you show up and you're honest. One, you recognize that your problems aren't that unique. Basically, we're all struggling with the same stuff. And so when you really see that clearly, it's like, oh, okay. I'm not the one guy who's struggling with X, Y, and Z. And that's nourishing and liberating, and that's a step toward healing. And it's the opportunity for you to provide space and presence for others, which is also nourishing.
Yeah.
And, you know, a big part of the work that I do with my private clientele is about returning to a more ancestral way of life, in the way that you spend your time, in the way that you eat, in your daily lifestyle. And men getting together with men it's common. It's what we've been doing for a long time. And maybe there's not a lot of opportunity for that nowadays. And there's not a lot of like ritual rites of passage and stepping in fully into what it means to be a man. And there's a lot of lost old boys out there.
Yeah.
You know, look at our ritual rite of passage in our society right now, stepping into masculinity is like college. Come on, you kidding me? You go to college and you come out of college and you're a man? What the? My college experience, I didn't. So we're missing that.
Yeah.
And that's to the detriment of men and women.
For sure. I'm seeing it with I have a co-working hive and teaching, and the biggest thing is actually moving from girl to woman.
Yeah.
It is there are so many there's so much conditioning around it.
Sure.
From the idea of what a body type looks like to the holding, what it looks like to hold like feminine integrity, like to be able to speak the truth and not get knocked out in doing it, you know, with anyone.
Yeah.
It's really, it's a practice, and it requires a lot of tenacity and courage to move all the way through.
Absolutely.
But I tell you, it's a badass fucking thing at the end.
Hell yeah.
You know?
Hell yeah. And so like I was saying, it's the lack of ritual rites of passage, of the opportunities for men to get together and be honest and give critical feedback to each other and, you know, be true. It's to the detriment of men and women. So this men's group, it's not like a bunch of guys getting together complaining about chicks. You know that, of course, but not everyone does.
Right.
It's not that at all. And it's not like it's a boys club and no women are invited. We get together so we can be raw and be honest and practice so that we can show up better for the women and the children in our lives, you know? So it's work that's for the collective good. It's work that's for the collective good. And I find it to be deeply rewarding, and I have a grand scale vision for it, and it's happening.
Yeah.
You know, we're building something big, and it feels really good.
Yeah. that getting back to the ancestry and primality and like what it means to be human and like and moving into adulthood are really important themes.
Yeah.
I think for the show, for you, for all of us as we're working here together.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something too that keeps coming to me to mention, like the importance of our relationship. I mean, we come from very different places, and yet like there's something very like it relates to race. It's like there's something very important about recognizing when you get to the core of who you are.
Yeah.
Like the guidance is more, it's energetic, like, and the separation is, it's a very different sort of relating to you that I have than I think I've, you know, and it's worth, like, I'm still breaking it down as you're talking, but I felt like it's important to mention.
Sure.
Because people watching this are gonna, they'll hear us and see us, but I think that part of like what they're used to seeing and calculating between people will come up. And so I want to address it in a way that's like, that allows it to be seen and noted. Like there's a thing in both of us that allows like our true essences to meet and compete and like hold each other to integrity in a way that is like honors us, honors both of us, and makes us both better.
Yeah.
And I think it's true with anyone that we cross paths with, because that is work. You know, that is ultimately what's important. Even if I meet somebody, you know, it could be anybody. They haven't, like, holding myself in integrity with any, you know, white guy on the street is it's a different experience for me now, because I have a good sense of who I am, and people show up differently for me in that way.
That's beautiful.
So I want to just like note that, because it feels important for anyone watching. Like,
yeah,
that's another important piece of like of being right with yourself.
Totally.
Of finding your power, and is that there is less the energetics of like making your feeling less than, or wanting to be more, or wanting to be seen. It really does come from the inner work more than anything else. That's been my experience.
Yeah, I think you're speaking to, you know, if you really come to understand yourself at the deepest level.
Yeah.
Or at least try.
Yeah.
You see yourself in everyone.
Yeah.
And as you really make friends with yourself, accept yourself radically, totally, and unconditionally, there's less competition. I think there's a verse in the Tao Te Ching. I can't remember it verbatim, but it's like talking about the way the master carries herself, and because she competes with no one, she's placed above them all, or something like that. But there's no need to be better,
right?
You know. And so I was thinking of I think I was thinking what you were saying a moment ago, like with regard to, we were talking about earlier, police. At some point, I just started to see a cop as just some guy, you know? And it's the same with race.
Yeah.
You know, it's so easy to just see a color or a religion and then put all these ideas.
Yeah.
But the practice is just to stay present and just see the person across from you and connect. And the differences are surface level, but the similarities
are deep.
You know, we're here together on planet Earth at this point, at this moment. We don't know what, we don't know why, we don't know where we come from, we don't know where we're going. When you're looking through that lens, so you're a little darker than me, okay?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it just becomes that. Yeah. And anything that comes up between us is like an opportunity for growth.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's a really interesting, it relieves a lot of bullshit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then I can just be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, we talked about a lot of things today.
Yeah, we sure did, huh?
We did. We talked about race. We talked about a little bit about relationship. We talked about money. We talked about tribe and the offering and what it means to be a man, right? And that rite of passage.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about your life and your journey and your offering and your vision, which I'm here and happy to support in any way.
Thank you, Jenny.
Yeah. And your website is Savage and Saint?
Yeah, savageandsaint.com.
Uh-huh.
And on that website, there's a link to my Instagram, which is Savage and Saint. And there's also a link to the Tribe Instagram.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to learn more about the Tribe, there's a link for the Tribe on my site, or your viewers could go to www.wearesacred.org, and then there's a link for the Tribe offerings. And it really lays out, what we're about and how you can get involved.
Great. Yes. This one, I think, is about the journey within and the importance of that. And so I challenge you to look in and see what it is that you're wanting next. Or is it something new? And if it is, maybe try one or two of the things that we mentioned here today. The show and never miss an episode, please subscribe and join our online community at Sex, Race, and Money with me, Jenny Lewis, or at the website, jennylewiscoaching.com.